Now we move to beasts, Antichrist, and women. This is not because women have anything to do with the beasts. It is simply that in the book of Revelation, women are somehow associated with the beasts that either follow them or, in fact, woman is in control of the beast. So in various chapters, we see those characters go together. And generally speaking, there are good women and bad women, and there are good beasts and bad beasts. So here we come to chapter 12, one of the key chapters in the book of Revelation, which is about a good woman who is about to give birth and is pursued by a dragon. A dragon in this case is an evil beast. Revelation chapter 12, verses 1 through 3. A great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and a crown of 12 stars on her head. She was pregnant and cried out in pain as she was about to give birth. Then another sign appeared in heaven, an enormous red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns on its heads. So first of all, who is this woman? In traditional Christian interpretation, the woman is either the wisdom of God or Mary, the mother of Jesus, because the child who is about to be born is Jesus himself. Now, the moon under her feet and 12 stars, the crown of 12 stars on her head, symbolize Christian leaders. The moon, as I said, one of the apostles, and 12 stars, 12 apostles of Jesus. So that is one traditional interpretation. There was another interpretation in Christianity that the woman is actually Diana, the ancient goddess of paganism, who in early Christianity was associated with the victory of Christianity over paganism. So that is another possible interpretation. Also, you can have different interpretations in different religious groups that we've studied. Christian scientists would say that the birth of a child is the birth of Christian Science, and the woman may be Mary Baker Eddy. Baha'is may say that the woman is the wisdom of God and the child is the prophet, not necessarily Jesus. So this is how Christian artists portrayed this passage. A woman clothed with the sun, a 13th century source. This is a 14th century source. Now, Revelation 12:14, the woman was given the 2 wings of a great eagle so that she might fly to the place prepared for her in the wilderness, where she would be taken care of for a time, times and a half time, out of the serpent's reach. So according to Baha'i interpretation, the woman would fly to the wilderness where she would spend 1260 days, equals a time, times and a half a time. And 1260 days means 1260 years. And 1260 years is the number of years that would pass between the appearance of Muhammad and the appearance of the Bab in 1844. This is how this flight was depicted in 13th century. Revelation 12, verses 15-16. Then from his mouth the serpent spewed water like a river to overtake the woman and sweep her away with the torrent. But the earth helped the woman by opening its mouth and swallowing the river that the dragon had spewed out of his mouth. Here is how this scene is portrayed in the 13th century source. And our next source is 16th century source. This is a very interesting source. When Martin Luther started his Reformation in the 16th century, he decided to translate the Bible. And he undertook this gigantic scholarly project, and this became the first translation of the whole Bible from its original languages to a European language, German. So he completed this project, and this is the image from the Luther's Bible. The Bible was illuminated, published in the 16th century. This is a 16th century source. So moving on to the next chapter, chapter 13, verse 3 and 4. One of the heads of the beast seemed to have had a fatal wound, but the fatal wound had been healed. The whole world was filled with wonder and followed the beast. People worshipped the dragon because he had given authority to the beast, and they also worshipped the beast and asked, who is like the beast? Who can wage war against it? So the beast, the dragon, these are evil characters in the book of Revelation. Who are they? One standard interpretation is that the beast is a symbol of the empire. According to a Christian interpretation, the beast may stand for the Roman Empire. According to Baha'i interpretation, the beast stands for the Muslim Empire. But in both cases, we are talking about imperial power. This is called Man Adoring Beast with Two Horns. This is a 15th century source. And finally, 666. Revelation chapter 13, verse 18. This calls for wisdom. Let the person who has insight calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. That number is 666. So this is 14th century depiction of these verses. The number 666, as I told you, is usually said to be the numeric value of the name of Nero Caesar, one of the emperors of the Roman Empire, the emperor who started the persecution of Christians in the first century. Revelation 17:3-4. Then the angel carried me away in the spirit into a wilderness. There I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast that was covered with blasphemous names and had 7 heads and 10 horns. The woman was dressed in purple and scarlet and was glittering with gold, precious stones, and pearls. She held a golden cup in her hand filled with abominable things and the filth of her adulteries. So this is the woman on the beast, 13th century source. And here is an example of an evil woman in Revelation. If in chapter 12 we meet a good woman, the wisdom of God, in this chapter we meet the so-called whore of Babylon. Who is this woman? That is a $1 million question, and I've read different interpretations. One of the interpretations is that the United States is the whore of Babylon, but there are many other contenders. So moving on, this is the whore of Babylon. This is a 15th century source, and here is another 16th century source from Luther's Bible. And here is a 20th century source, which looks like Hollywood star. This is Robert Roberg, the whore of Babylon riding on a beast with 7 heads, 1991. Now, I told you that there are some good beasts and bad beasts, but here we are dealing mostly with bad beasts. There are good beasts, though. These are the 4 beasts, or the 4 creatures that worship at the throne of the judge in the so-called white throne judgment. These are 4 beasts or 4 creatures that have the face of a man, the face of a lion, the face of an eagle, and the face of an ox. And in traditional Christian interpretation, those creatures were identified with Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John, the authors of the 4 Gospels. However, these 4 creatures have been identified also with various empires. Revelation chapter 19, verse 19, then I saw the beast and the kings of the earth and their armies gathered together to wage war against the rider on the horse and his army. This is the battle of Armageddon. This is the final battle between good and evil. And here is the Apocalypse, 14th century source. As always, very true to the original. And let's compare this to Benjamin West. the American 19th century painting, The Destruction of the Beast and the False Prophet. So, which approach do you prefer? Traditional, medieval / Renaissance, or modern, or 20th century?